Recording. So due today are your mixed practice 2 coding bat problem set for my class, not Mr. Simon's class. Due for both our classes are the Asteroids Part 1 assignment. And for my class you have your weekly reflections, which you should be updating. And so for today's class, it will be a work day. You are going to work on your Asteroids Part 1, ask for real-time help, or work on coding bat and follow along with what I'm doing with reviewing 4 problems without any odds, TripleElement, SquirrelPlay, and CigarParty. Take this time to also post your questions so I can organize them as I'm thumbing through and working through the requested exercises. Okay, let's begin. Maybe we'll start from the top and move down. CigarParty. I think CigarParty is a bunch of if statements, right? So the student that requested this CigarParty, there was one error in their output. So do you pass most of the test cases? And is it like other tests that you don't pass and you don't see what the input is? Is that the concern? Okay, it doesn't pass 2 of them, but other tests are okay. Alright, so let me think about what could be. Alright, so some things that are tricky with these kinds of exercises in CigarParty and SquirrelPlay is translating the English into logic and therefore code. So I imagine here, right, inclusive means that you include 40 and 60. So then comes this idea of is it the weekend in which there are no upper bounds on the number of cigars. So then this number, right, changes. It could be a super big number. So really it's just this half, right? It has to have a minimum of 40 and there's no upper bound. So you translate that into an inequality. And return true if the party with the given values is successful, otherwise false. So with this example, without seeing your physical code, I don't know how further to advise you. So student that requested it, copy and paste your code into the Zoom chat so I can debug it. Or we'll debug it together as a whole class. Alright, just from looking at your code, you probably did not deal with the case where you need a minimum of 40. Right, so when it is the weekend, you can't have a cigar party when you have 39 cigars. And I believe that's the test case that you fail. See it? And I by no means encourage this behavior, that is just the context of the problem. Right? There's squirrels that are working with cigars, yeah? Not people. It makes it okay. Alright, next problem. Related, you have these squirrels in Palo Alto. So the guy that made Coding Bat is a Stanford lecturer, Nick Parlanti. Stanford is in the South Bay, really close to Palo Alto. He teaches the introductory CS class there, which a lot of their undergraduates take. That's why it says Palo Alto. Fun fact. Okay, so for this problem, I can predict the trouble that you have with this one. And again, similar to the previous problem with these if statement heavy problems, is that right here, the upper limit is 100 instead of 90. So that means that only one number is replaced. The 90 is changed to a 100. You still need a minimum of 60 degrees. These squirrels aren't going to play in Palo Alto when it is snowing outside. Is that your error? So these two problems are very much related to one another. And if that's not your error, then yeah, okay. That's two of them. Okay, triple elements next. We'll just work down the list. And so I have a bunch of junk already written for this. I'm going to copy and paste these parts away. This is from the previous class. I do want this stuff to go away. Here, okay, so that's most of the answer that I have. And I'll zoom in. Not too much. All right, so this one is very much like your arrays practice that you had, where you have to mess around with indices. It's helpful to have a second variable here to help you keep track of where you are in your original array and where you are in the output array, which I like to call answer, the longer triple in size array. So when we see this, all right, given an integer array called nums, return a new array of length nums.length times 3, where each element appears 3 times in a row. And I think in a row is the part that makes it different than the previous triple elements you solved. So in the beginning, you know that you need an integer array, int square bracket ants equals new integer array of size nums.length times 3. Now the problem tells you how big it's going to be. Already at that point, we can check to see if we have the right idea. Oops. What did I do? Must have not commented down here. Go. Great. So just check the first one. I see 4 things. Here I should see 12 zeros. Yep, there's 12. Neat. Next part. We have to begin the copying. And you can hopefully see the patterns here when we're dealing with arrays, when we need to investigate each element of our array. That should give you a big hint that you're going to need some kind of loop. So we'll use the handy dandy for loop. Equals 0, I less than. Now here comes the question, right? I have to make some decisions. Where is my for loop going to stop? Is it going to be based on nums, my original array, or is it going to be based on my answer, that triple in length array? So I leave question marks there because I'm unsure. We could go either direction with this. Oops. I++. Ooh, stuck in Zoom chat. Click, click. I++, okay? Like that. Now we go over a little bit of what has to happen in here, this idea of copying it 3 times. We know that on one side, you'll have ants, because that's where your position, right? 3 things have to be copied. So you know that the code that goes inside the for loop looks like this, right? We don't know about the index just yet. And then on the right-hand side, it's going to be nums of some other index. 2, 3, 4. Okay, maybe I should do it like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's 4 question marks on the right-hand side with nums, because that's all the same variable. Okay, and there's your code that copies things 3 times. And the challenge, and the part that I imagine where you're stuck on, is what goes inside the index? How is that going to work? And so below in these green comments is me trying to show my work and how I would think through and approach this problem. So then down here, you have that first example, 2, 3, 5, and 4 in an array. One way you can track it is using, okay, if I have my for loop, if I have my variable I representing where I am in my nums array, this one, then the positions I need to copy this 2 to is 0, 1, and 2. 0, 1, and 2. Now that I'm done copying over the 2 from my original array, nums, I need to move on to 3. And so there's my attempt down here. Now I'm at position 1. I'm here. And now I need to copy the 3 to positions 3, 4, and 5. There's my attempt to show you that pattern. And one more for good measure. When I'm done copying my 3's, I need to go to the 5, which is located in position 2 in my nums array, and then that copies the 6, 7, and 8, like so. And at this point, when I set this up, you see a pattern, right? You think, it's a line. I see a slope, I see a y-intercept of sorts, kind of. You see a change, so you could use 2 variables at this point. You could create like a j variable to help you keep track of where you are in the answer array. That could work. But as I've set this up now, we just need 1 variable. My for loop walks through my original array, nums, and I do some crafty multiplication to keep it like in chunks of 3. So for this problem, when you translate, oh gosh, it's so weirdly zoomed. Okay, when you translate this last part, this pattern, into indices and follow through, you should be able to solve this problem and fill in these blanks up here. How's that? Yeah, good. A very common problem that you'll have in computer science in dealing with arrays. I don't think I mentioned it for this class, but when you get interviewed for Facebook or Google or what's another big company, Amazon, they have coding bat-like problems for you to solve as part of the interview process. And instead of coding it up in coding bat, you'll work with like a software engineer or your manager of sorts, and you actually write out all this code by hand on a whiteboard and talk through how you would solve this problem, because they're kind of hard problems like these ones in coding bat and beyond. Yeah. So it is a useful skill if you are interested. It demonstrates your problem-solving abilities. It's part of the real-life assessment process. That's your test, right? Your interview, whether or not you get a job post-college. Like when I worked for HP, I had to sit through like 5 of these in a row with 5 of my future teammates asking me little coding bat-like problems, like, hey, solve this. Like, oh gosh, okay, here I go. Blah, 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 blah. And there's no computer for you to like check over whether or not you're getting like test cases right or wrong. You just ask them, it's like, how's this look? And they're like, did you think about this? I'm like, oh, no, I didn't. And you have to go back and address everything. All right, on to the 4th problem. It was without odd element. So let me go there. Pause here for you to look. If you're crafty about it, you can rewind my video to go look at the answer. That's okay. Without single odd, okay. Given an integer array, also called nums, that contains exactly 1 odd number, return a new array with the length 1 less that contains all the values except that odd number. Ooh, interesting. I think we did something very similar to this, did we not? Was it removing 3's? I think that's harder than this one, removing an odd number. So things that stand out to me, again, is like, I know the length of my answer. It's 1 less than what I had before, because it tells me there's just 1 odd number. So here I go again with my integer array called ants. Oops. Ants. And then I know the size equals int, or new int, new store space and memory for this array, nums.length minus 1. Oops. Return ants. And already I can run my code and just double check that the sizes match. 2 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4 and 4, 6 and 6, yeah. So I got the size correct. Now comes the complicated part, is that idea of, okay, detecting an odd number, removing it, and copying things to its proper positions. Int I equals 0. Again, we leave this idea of like, okay, am I going to march through my original array or my answer array. I think here we do want my nums, yeah, nums.length. So this is the thing we're going to march through. And the copying kind of works like this. Inside the for loop, right? When I see the first thing, I ask myself, is it odd? Like yes, or is it odd? No. Then I copy it. If it is odd, then I skip it. And then you go to the next one. You ask yourself, is it odd? I'm like, yes, it is. So don't copy it. And then here, I see a 6. Is it odd? No. Then I copy it. So in English, it's like if I see an odd number, don't copy it. Then don't copy it. Otherwise, copy it. It may actually work the other way, but I guess I'll show you both of those answers. So in computer code, we're translating those two sentences into if statements. If nums, we're trying to access an element, so that's square bracket I. Odd number, remember this percent sign, that's the remainder sign. If I divide it by 2, and I have a remainder that is equal to 1, that means I have detected an odd, detected an odd number. If I have a remainder when I divide it by 2, I found an odd number. I found an odd number. Right? Don't copy it here. Don't copy means do nothing. And then else, we actually copy it over to our new array. Answer, ooh, right? It's more complicated than just I. Equals nums square bracket I. So then this index becomes the challenge, the sticky point. What should go into answer? Any ideas from the class? We've done something similar to this before. What goes into that highlighted index within answer? Give people a couple seconds to type up responses, and if not, then I'll answer my own question. Ideas? Yeah, yes, very good. We can use another variable, something like a j variable. And what's j's job? Doesn't skip like I would. The student's kind of nice. Yes, you'll keep track of the odd number that is skipped. This is some pretty crafty stuff, right? Like j++, something like that is what a student is suggesting. 0 and 2. Huh? So, I think this works. I missed something. Okay. Surprise, surprise. I don't know if I ever demonstrated this part, which is kind of neat, which is why I liked how the students suggested it. So J's job is in fact to keep track of where you are in your second array. It will be, and I guess the hard part is having it keep track of when you're skipping, right? And so what's happening here, by putting j++, you know that j++ is shorthand for j++ is shorthand for j equals j plus 1. So that's like add, like first evaluate, so that means C, like j is going to be 0, and after I'm done assigning something to index 0, I add 1 to it, so it's ready to be in that next position. Like by doing nothing, we've skipped over the copying. The else statement contains the copying. Okay, this is a very short, concise, people call it elegant way of solving this problem. You could have done something like, okay, copy j over like this, and then afterwards done j equals j plus 1. So what j plus plus here does is it squishes it all into one line. Kind of neat. So this would have also yielded all pluses. The other way is kind of flipping the if-else statements in terms of logic. Like, since you do nothing here, you don't really need this if statement. You could have just turned this to the opposite. What do I mean? You could have solved this by down here. Still within the for loop, right? Yeah. So then all this junk is what I need, and instead like frame it in terms of its what's it, contrapositive? Is that the right term? So if I see an even number, that's when I copy, and thus you've translated this two-sentence problem into one sentence. If num square bracket I is an even number, then I copy. Otherwise, you do nothing, which is kind of implied with no else being there, right? So that's another way to solve it. 3 ways to solve the type given. So a fun short problem. Further questions on coding bat or your asteroids? So block 1 with asteroids, notice that you'll be adding to that same GitHub repository, but you'll be submitting the link to that repository 3 times. So when you go on after the break, we're going to assign part 2. Some of you may choose to work on part 2 during the break here. Okay, so don't upload to GitHub just yet until I grade part 1. Because we're still using the same link and you're using that same repository, I want to see the just the spaceship working in part 1 first. I give you a 4 out of 4, then you can upload part 2, because that builds on top of everything. It's going to have a spaceship inside. And part 2 involves making an asteroids class. Not so bad. And then the new idea present is this idea, this thing called an array list, which is related to arrays, but slightly different. But that's after the break. Make sense? If you need to meet with me for office hours, do set an appointment. We can talk through your specific coding bat test cases that you're not passing or work on asteroids. I'm readily available. Just send me an email. Before I release you, let me just double check people's progress on coding bat while they're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 people in this class. So 2 people have done progress in this class. Nice, good job, those 2 people. The other 5 people do get started on coding bat. I don't think you're seniors, that the people I'm looking at, so you get no slack because seniors have college applications. Most of you look like juniors, from what I can tell. So get your work in. That's my reminder. I'll let you all go 5 minutes early. Take care. If you want to stay to get more individual help, you're welcome to do so.